Hottie, I have a confession to make. I share all of my Floyd's of Leadville products with my wife, except one.
She's going to hear this episode.
Well, I hope she will. I guess this will be a good test to find out if she actually listens to the show, as opposed to just says she does. But yeah, I'm trying to come clean on this. I share my soft gels, I share my balm, I share my tincture, my recovery mix. I share with her everything I get from Floyd's of Leadville. But I don't share my Floyd's of Leadville gems with her. They're just too good, man. I keep them all for myself.
Well, you're going to have to work that out with the hammer yourself. But let's share some of them with our listeners, if you don't mind. It's going to be our second Floyd's of Leadville giveaway. We're going to give one lucky listener 2 bottles of full spectrum soft gels and 2 6-packs of Floyd's on-the-go gems.
Yeah, these gummies are so good and good enough to hoard. But I'm kind of burying the lead here because the 50 milligram full spectrum soft gels have really become my go-to primary CBD tool. Getting 2 bottles of them basically means that you are set up for 2 full months with Floyd's of Leadville.
Yeah, and then those gummies, aside from being delicious enough that Fatty hoards them, they give you a nice dose of CBD, 25 milligrams. They're easy to eat on the bike, when you're recovering, or any time at all.
Yep, so we're just going to draw one listener's name at random, and it's super easy to register. Just go to bit.ly/FloydsDrawing and fill out the form. And do it right away because by entering now, you're not registering just for this drawing, but for any others that we do throughout the rest of the season.
If you've already filled out that form for our first giveaway, you're all set then for this drawing. You don't need to go and fill it out again.
Yeah, and it is finally worth noting that Floyd's of Leadville uses only CBD that is extracted using the finest state-of-the-art methods that ensure the highest quality and purity in all of their products, with third-party testing for purity and potency.
And that Floyd's of Leadville products are natural, locally sourced, and use no preservatives or additives. All these benefits come without the side effects of pharmaceuticals or the psychoactive components of marijuana.
Yeah, so be sure to check out Floyd's of Leadville, our presenting sponsor, at floydsofleadville.com and use the code FATTY at checkout for 15% discount on your first 2 orders.
And thanks, Floyd's of Leadville, for sponsoring the show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. Season 2, episode 21 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country.
Here's a fun little fact for our listeners. Hottie and I number our episodes by season, and this is season 2, episode 21, as you just mentioned, but it is in fact also the 46th episode you and I have created of the Leadville podcast. I don't know if you even knew that, Hottie. So it's no surprise that by now we've touched on practically everything, even remotely Leadville-esque. And we've gotten into pretty deep detail on most things that are going to affect Racer's Day out on the course.
And that includes crewing. It's a great subject to talk about over and over. If you've got a crew, and most racers do, you really want to make sure you're on the same page, which is why in season 1 of this podcast, we spent episode 8 on planning with your crew and episode 9 on executing that plan.
Yeah, the info we shared in those episodes is good stuff. It is evergreen. Go back and give them a listen, share them with your crew, make your plan, and then execute it. It could very well be the difference between hitting and missing your goal for your race this year.
All that said, there is one thing that's different this year, and that's the fact that I am crewing for Fatty. So all of this gets a little more real for us this year.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah, very real. Hottie and I are going to use this podcast, and in fact, right this moment, to have a little meeting, a team meeting during a podcast. How awesome. And it's going to be more or less like every racer and crew ought to have. We've put together a shared Google Doc with my projected splits, everything I want at each crew station, and a running to-do, to-buy, and to-remember list for each of us. basically it is our shared Leadville racer / crewer Bible.
That's right. And in our show notes for this episode, we're going to link to a read-only version of that doc. Feel free to use it as you put together your own packing list, shopping list, and crewing plans.
Yeah, you'll have to forgive us for making that read-only. You don't get to start putting down things that Hottie and I need to buy. So do that
like a gun or like a shotgun or a knife. Just you can't write that stuff. We don't need it anyhow. Ken has the gun.
Yep, that's right. And we'll let him be the one to start this race. So let's walk through our Leadville list and just sort of talk through what we're going to be doing, and much as if we were having our in Leadville day before the race, about, making sure that both of us know what each other needs and wants for the big day. First thing at the top of that list is going to be a projected splits for your hoped for finish time. And why is that important to you as a crew, Hottie?
Well, I like to know when to expect riders. Chances are, if you are running a crew or part of a crew, you may think you have only one racer, but I guarantee you people come up to you and say, hey, would you mind handing me a bottle or doing this or that? Or maybe you've got several people in a house with you in Leadville. So there's probably going to be more than one rider who you're going to be supporting. So it's important to know for each rider what their expected times are at the individual stops. For instance, Fatty, if he's going for a sub-9, expects to be at Pipeline in about 2 hours following the start of the race, or about 8:30 in the morning. And that's how I like to see it too. As a crew member, I like to see estimated time to the feed and estimated time of day. So I like to commingle both of those so I can both keep my eye on a watch on my wrist, or if I have a stopwatch or something else going, it's just a better way to get. Time of day really helps you too if you're helping multiple riders. So I love this little layout here.
Yep. And so when you take a look at the Google Doc that we've put together, it's a nice little table. So I've put down my projected splits for the 8 hours and 50 minutes finish that I am hoping for. I'm looking for a sub-9. And I have location, so each of the crew stations, the race time, that is the time that I'm caring about, the time of day, which is the time that Hottie will have on his watch, and then actual, so that if he is printing things out, he can write down what time I went through, which will help him adjust as, the day, if I'm having a banner day and I'm a little faster, he can start expecting me a little sooner. Or if I'm having a bad day, he can start expecting me a little later. The reality is times change. So the actual is a place for him to adjust the table as he goes. So easy to make that on your own. Now, in my case, I'm not expecting to see you at Pipeline 1. So that is just sort of an FYI. The first place that I want to see you is at the Twin Lakes alternate feed zone. And I'm hoping to see you about 2 hours and 50 minutes into the race, which is 9:20 in the morning. And here is what I want you to be ready for before I get there.
Before you go there, Fatty, we should make one note about Twin Lakes alternate. Just remember, folks, I think the ride between the actual dam itself, which is where most people set up, and the alternate feed zone, the difference in time outbound, I think is like 30 or 35 minutes. So you figuring out what the split is to alternate feed, you got to calculate that in. And you also have to remember it for the racer coming down off of Columbine. They're actually going to get to you sooner than they otherwise would at the dam. So they're going to be about 30 minutes from dam to alternate feed, and then obviously quicker getting back to you off of Columbine.
So it's good we are having this meeting, because that, of course, it means that we're going to need to adjust the times on some of these. And that really is, that's super useful to know, and it's why you got to have these meetings. So anyway, at the cruise station that you were going to have set up, and we will figure out precisely where it's going to be once we get to Leadville. You probably have it in your mind, but I don't remember exactly where that's going to be. But I want you to have out my U-SWE pack with a liter of water, 2 Martin 160 packets in there. Shake it really well, flip it, and get rid of the air in the bladder so that I don't have any sloshing effect. You can tell I get super specific about things that matter to me, and the sound of sloshing water and the feeling of sloshing water really matters. I'm going to want to have you have a bottle of water with a goo electrolyte tablet in there, a cup of water that I can swallow 4 electrolyte capsules with. So, an easy way for me to do that. 4 gels that I'm going to have in a sandwich baggie out and ready to put in my right jersey pocket. An open bonk breaker bar that I can take a couple of bites from. And clean glasses, because I know from the start of the race, as I'm going on the flat part before St. Kevin's and then on the flat part from between Pipeline and Twin Lakes Dam, there is a lot of dust in the air, and the glasses I start with are very likely to be darn near opaque by the time I get to you at that first cruise station. So I'm going to have a pair that I'd like you to remind me to swap out so that I can see as I'm going up and down Columbine.
You're lucky you have a great sponsor in Shimano to give you multiple pair of sunglasses, I see. Tell me why you do not, or do you, maybe I've got this wrong, premix your drinks. In other words, like your Camelback or your U-Sweet pack. Would you not mix that the night before and just have it ready to go?
No, I could, but I've got a great crew that I can rely on that for. So, we might go ahead and have it pre-mixed. I actually haven't thought about that too much. Mm-hmm. I figure you're going to have so much time in the morning that I'll just have you take care of it.
Oh, no relaxing when you're feeding for Fatty.
That's right. I'm making you do as much work for me as possible. So once all of that is before I get to you. Then once we actually get there, and this is all written down, this is in an ordered checklist. I want you to first thing give me the cup of water and the 4 electrolyte capsules, and the first thing I'm going to do is work on swallowing those. Then I want you to give me the bonk breaker. I'm going to keep the cup of water and keep using that to help me chew and swallow a few bites of the bonk breaker. I like to have something solid for a second. Ask me if I am done with my arm warmers. Just depending on the day, I might be ready to get rid of those, or it might be cold and I might want them, or it might be looking like it's cloudy. Swap my glasses. We talked about that a little bit. Ask me if anything's going on with my bike. Oddly enough, I need you to ask me that because I am so race stupid that even, say something's been driving me absolutely nuts. When I pull into the cruise station, at that moment, I might forget this thing that has been bugging me incessantly unless I'm given a prompt. Next, pull out the bottles that I'm going to be stopping, that I'm going to have started the race with. Swap in the one bottle that I'm going to be using, and that'll just have some nice electrolytes. I like you to put that in the down tube bottle cage. Then my gels in my right jersey pocket, top down. And I can explain why that matters to me. But if you think about how you grab a gel out of your jersey pocket, it actually makes sense to have your gels go in upside down.
Let me ask you a more fundamental question about crewing and being serviced as a racer. Now, one of the things we did in years past was we would double team a racer if we could. If they didn't come in all at once to our spot, we would put 2 people on a racer and let one person handle pockets and jersey stuff, and let the other person handle some of your other items here. Or do you like or not like that idea?
I love that idea. The more help I get, the better. I am a huge fan of having, one person who is handing me water and food while the other person is pulling stuff out of my cage and pulling stuff out of my left jersey pocket where I'm going to have garbage. That kind of attention and that kind of speed is so appreciated. I'm obviously looking to be crewed at speed. And the more help I get, the better. And, I will thank you for it profusely after the race, but get me out of there ASAP.
Okay, then we get you fully loaded and all ready to go, push you out of the pit, and have a fun climb up to the Columbine mine and back.
Yep, and I've got enough that I should not need to stop at Columbine. That is always the plan. The only way I am stopping at Columbine is if it looks like it is going to hail or snow, in which case I happen to always have something in the drop bag at the Columbine station, where basically I can load up for cyclone weather and deal with the descent as best as I can. Once I get back down to Twin Lakes, though, I am going to expect you to have already prepared one bottle that'll go on my cage with Morton 160, another bottle with water and a goo electrolyte tablet in it. And then once again, and this is true at all of them, a cup of water, some more electrolyte capsules that I'm going to swallow, 3 gels from the sandwich baggie that I will have prepared that says Twin Lakes Dam 2. Once again, another bonk breaker, or the same bonk breaker I started with, because I probably didn't eat the whole thing when I saw you the first time, as well as available, but only if I say I'm not feeling good. I need, I've got a terrible headache, or I am, I feel like my stomach's distended. In which case, you'll have Gas X and Excedrin now ready for me to wolf down as well. I'm going to drop the use we pack. Hand me some water and electrolytes, give me the bonk breaker, ask me if I've got any problems. We are going just with bottles for the next section. The Morton in the down tube, the water in the seat tube cage, trash out of my left jersey pocket, gels in the right jersey pocket, once again top down, and I am gone.
Mm-hmm. Another well-planned stop here. There must be a story behind this Gas X and Excedrin.
One time I came down from Columbine with just an absolute brute of a headache, and I did not have anything for it until I got to the pipeline aid station, where some kind stranger offered me an Excedrin. I took that, and in 10 minutes, I went from feeling terrible to the headache being gone. I've never needed it since, but it's something that I've wanted as a just in case ever since. The Gas X is something that both my wife and I swear by during races. Sometimes your gut just gets gassy and it hurts. And we've had good success with Gas X as something that if your stomach is, bloating up and is really giving you some pretty considerable discomfort, it's something that has worked pretty well for us. Mm-hmm. So we take a couple of those, and it isn't going to be the difference between finishing and not finishing, but it can be the difference between struggling and having a good day on the bike.
Mm-hmm. So again, we're going to shove you out of Twin Lakes, and if it's the alternate feed, good news, folks. If you're using alternate feed, you've got more time to get ahead of your racer and get to pipeline. That's, again, one of the benefits of using the alternate feed. You can be closer to your car. It's easier to get to your car. It's easier to stay ahead of your rider. And before we get to pipeline itself, and first of all, that ride over from alternate feed is a little over an hour, or planned for right around an hour. You could probably check out some of the times based on what other folks have done, but depending on how fast your rider is, so you do have some time to hopscotch ahead. Now, Fatty, before you go into your pipeline list, do you normally stop pipeline outbound, or is it only inbound?
Only inbound. I have never had a crew at pipeline outbound. I just roll right through it.
If you could have somebody there, would you?
Nope, don't need anything. 2 bottles will get me from the start of the race to the alternate feed zone, no problem. And it's the difference of carrying carrying 2 more gels. I don't need it. It's a stop that I simply do not expect to use.
And here's the only reason why I would say that somebody might want to consider having something there, because if obviously the power line, anything can happen coming down that thing. You could fall. Something could go wrong, and your next stop is going to be pipeline outbound. And if you've got somebody there with who knows what you might need, maybe a Band-Aid, maybe anything, maybe you need to pump up a tire, at least you know they're there. It doesn't mean you have to stop, but at least it's another zone where you can pull over, see a familiar face, and say, oh yeah, I burnt my tire. I need to just pump it up or something like that.
So that's a great point, Hottie. And the fact is, since I have always used the original Twin Lake Dam cruise station area, I have always said no to pipeline because I have seen so many people who, having been helped at pipeline, their crew is not waiting for them at Twin Lakes Dam because they weren't able to get there in the interim. And it left the racers in a bad situation for the much longer period of time from Twin Lakes Dam to the top of Columbine and back down. They didn't have everything that they needed.
Right.
And that's, it's a much more critical aid station as far as I'm concerned. With you working from the alternate feed zone, I would say, and if you are 100% confident that you can get to me at both of those places, then I'll need to think about what I would want to have and where we'd want to see each other. But having that option, just in case, if I had a flat or I had a wreck or, any of numerous things, or if, the weather has made a serious change for the worse and I need my bad weather bag, then, I would love to have that option to stop, with the understanding that unless things have gone wrong, I'm just going to give you a thumbs up and keep going.
Right. Actually, I do not think it's possible for one person to go to Pipeline, then Twin Lakes, then back to Pipeline. I think that's way too much. But what you can do is split your crew. And you can put somebody there or team up with another crew and say, hey, will you watch for my rider coming through Pipeline outbound, and I'll watch for your rider at Twin Lakes. So you can do something like that. I would not try to leave downtown Leadville, go to Pipeline, then go to Twin Lakes, and go back to Pipeline. You're right.
So dangerous.
Even if it's the alternate feed, you could miss them. Go straight to Twin Lakes if that's your only choice. But if you get the ability to split your crew and you can put a person at Pipeline, it's a terrific spot to be. The other reason it's a nice idea to have somebody at Pipeline is if you do miss your rider coming back inbound to Pipeline, at least there's somebody there who can do something.
Right. And because you want to make sure you see them at one or the other places, or your plans can really come apart. If you've planned your race so that you don't need anybody, that's one thing. If you have planned your race so that you are relying on meeting up with a crew and then you don't, you can still put things together. I have missed crew before and have done just fine by rolling on ahead to the neutral aid station, which is incredibly well stocked. They're going to have plenty of fluid. They're going to have plenty of gel. They're going to have plenty of bananas and cantaloupe or broth. They have things for every kind of racer, every kind of need. They're going to take care of you. All is not lost if you do not see your crew. I want to make that clear. But
so let's go back to our scenario, which is I make it to Pipeline, and this is what I'm going to do for you. I'll get out about the time I know you're coming, you're going to see me almost out in the middle of that road. Like I get out there on the trail and start looking way up trail because you can. The great thing about Pipeline is you can see riders coming forever, and you can just start jumping up and down. Even though you may, Fatty, know where we plan to be, it's always good still to get out there because you're going to be, you might be in that dark place like we talked about before. Stupid, so it's a good idea to get out there and jump up and down and give them warning, hey, put on the brakes, get over here, and we'll get you taken care of. And when you do get there to Pipeline inbound, what do we have?
Okay. I am going to want you to have prepared, once again, 2 Martin 160 packets in a liter of water, and that'll be in my USWE pack. I will definitely be riding with the USWE for the final for the final quarter in distance, final third in time of the race. And a half bottle of water. I'll explain why I only want a half bottle of water in just a second. The cup of water, capsules, gels, all, bonk breaker, all of those things that I just simply cut and paste because I want them at every time that I meet up. And then there's really honestly nothing new that I'm going to be telling you here except for, we're swapping out bottles. And then I am out once again using the same basic setup that I have throughout. I try to make things as consistent from stop to stop as I can be to make it easy for you. And I've just, my own personal discovery from hearing other people's stories as well as my own is the more complicated your plan, the more failure points there are in that plan. So I try to make it so that everything you do is more or less the same from station to station. The reason I want the half bottle instead of a full bottle is I have an easy place to refill at the Carter aid station, the neutral one, and I just put out, I'm just going to twist off the cap of the bottle, ask him to put, top it off if I need to, and that's going to take care of me for the final hour of the race. My own experience is from the Carter aid station, you are more or less about an hour from the finish. So you need enough water to take care of the hour. That's one bottle.
Yeah, the reason why pipeline inbound is so important is because, like Fatty said, it represents a third of the race time. And this is the race, folks, from pipeline in. And that's why it's important to get crew to pipeline inbound. You can mess up the rest of the day. Get to pipeline inbound. It saved me. It probably meant a gold buckle for me once, having somebody there, and it certainly meant me finishing the race once. Once I got a good hug from Mrs. Hottie, and I kept pushing on. And another time, I got a push from a buddy, Greg Liebert. He pushed me out of that feed zone, pipeline inbound, enough so I got back in the group I'd been riding with, which was a bunch of local guys, in fact, and we rolled it all the way back to 6th and Harrison, and all of us gold buckled. So I consider pipeline inbound a crucial moment in the crewing spot. And there was a lot of emphasis placed on Twin Lakes. It's big, it's loud. Pipeline inbound, that last pit, at least the last time you were able to pit your racer, is, I think, really, really important.
Oh, yeah. You and I have talked about this many times, that there is not as much emphasis given to the final quarter of the race because it is so easy just looking at an elevation profile to fixate on the Columbine climb. But I think you and I agree that the real crux of the race is the final quarter of the race, where you are entering the power line climb with very tired legs at very high altitude. You're up above 11,000 feet at the height. You have one of the most technical descents, and then you've got that pavement climb when you are absolutely exhausted, as well as the boulevard finish. It is the rest of the Leadville race just softens you up for everything that happens after the pipeline aid station. So a good crew interaction there is a great launching point to a great final quarter of the race.
Mm-hmm. And of course, at every crew station, we're going to have a list of things there as well, right? We want some common items for each stop. Most of this is going to focus on Twin Lakes, but for pipeline inbound, a tool bag with, the essentials there to handle basic bike repair that might come up. Tube kits, spare tube kits. I know you're big on this. You always want to have tube kits laying around in case you do get a puncture. You want to have a fresh one in case you'd get a second puncture or a third or what have you.
Yeah, I'm good for two flat fixes on my Banjo Brothers bag that I keep attached, right under my saddle. If I have more than, if I have two between any two aid stations, I want you to be able to just say, here's this, and stuff it into my center pocket, and away I go. So I'll have plenty of those for you to take.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to look at this list, Fatty, and see the word saddle down there and probably have a big question mark, but I know the answer to this. Saddles do break.
Yeah, they do.
During the ride. So do seat posts, in fact. In fact, I used to put a seat post and a saddle in my bag because carbon posts, well, not if you have an Envy at least, but they can fail, or maybe the head unit fails. But saddles break, don't they, during rides?
They do. And you know what, Hottie? That is actually a really great point. I have several mountain bikes. All of them use the same seat post diameter. All of them have a good saddle. If I have a problem with anything in that area, the fastest, easiest thing to do would be just to go ahead and extract the whole seat post and plop in my spare. And I can give you that because I do have it. And so, good point. Glad we're having this meeting. You're going to have a seat post with the saddle already at the right, with tape marking the right height for it. You're going to be able to do me a record time saddle switch if you need to, because you're not going to have to change the saddle. You're just going to change the seat post, and that's fast and easy.
Yep. And floor pump. This is the, folks,
I
know we all run around with CO2 and hand pumps, but floor pump is an invaluable tool. Yeah, you got to haul it around a little bit, but it's the fastest way to properly inflate a tire. It's got a gauge. You can send the rider off with a lot more confidence if they need a little extra air, and it'll be faster if you have a floor pump.
Yep, absolutely. And then other common things, once again, I'll have glass cleaner and you'll be able to swap me out for that. Always have, some extra water for me to drink. If it's a brutally hot day, it's nice to be able to do a little bit of catch up while you're taking care of things, for me to be able to slug down some water. Without having to squeeze it through a bottle. It feels like a real luxury to just be able to tip back a cup. And then lube and rags. Once again, if it's dusty, it's nice to at least wipe off the accumulated crud off the chain. Because if you have multiple people there, it gives someone something to do that can make a little difference, which is a nice thing to have for your racer. Mm-hmm. So we have all of that in the crew document that you and I are looking at right now.
Yep. For crews going out there, just, having an ice cooler. I don't see this on your list anywhere, Fatty. I assume we're going to have an ice cooler with your drinks in them.
For sure.
Or your U-Suite in them, right? Keeping things cool. So nice when you're a racer, when somebody hands you a cool bottle of whatever it is you're trying to drink that day. Perfect. We've talked about pop-ups before. Pop-ups are great, or some people call them easy ups. I call them not so easy ups, because really they don't go up that easy. And remember, if you set one of those things up at Twin Lakes, you got to take it down. It's going to cut into your time of getting out of Twin Lakes and back to Pipeline. They're great to have. They keep you out of the sun. I've sat there, though, for most of the day without one and been able to do just fine otherwise. So those are a couple things that crew packing. Obviously, you're going to pack a lunch for yourself. You're going to need to eat. Bring a bell. Dress appropriately so your racer can see you. All these things I think are pretty obvious and things we've gone over in the past, Fatty.
Yep. And anyone who goes to the link to the shared doc we have will see that my list is lengthy. Below all of the stuff for race day is the stuff that I just need to remember to bring to Leadville, and that includes the not so easy up. It includes tables. I have some nice camping picnic tables that are going to be you'll be able to use to set up. There will be ice chests, of course. There are Sharpies, magic markers, duct tape, everything really that I have put on a list or another during the many years that I've been keeping lists for this race. It's a great idea to have something to start from. Use this as your starting point. Have a meeting with your crew, and both of you are going to sleep a little bit better on the night before the race. So big takeaways, Hottie, for crew meeting. Whether you want to use our doc as a template or do something on your own, first, have a shared, what I'm going to call, source of truth. We've talked about that before on this show, how we did it for the Hammer when she was racing the Silver Rush running race. But whether you're using paper or Google Doc or a shared notebook, whatever, the racer and crew need to have and then talk through your race day plan.
Yep, talk through in order. As you see it going down, you almost want to envision it. Use those those vision techniques. And of course, your plan needs to be specific where and what. Obviously, you want to just that racer and that crew need to be on page as to where they expect to see crew and what they expect to happen, just like Fatty laid it out in his document, and when.
Yep. And then for your crew, put the stuff that you're going to need each time you're going to see your crew in separate bags for each stop. I will be labeling these little bags, Twin Lake Dam 1, Twin Lake Dam 2. I'm also going to be having clear gallon bags that have clothes in them. And one of them is going to be labeled bad weather clothes. The other one will be labeled extreme bad weather clothes, which I've never had to open at Leadville. The one time that I wish I would have had one, I did not. And so I've learned that lesson. It's way better to be prepared and put stuff away afterward than to wish you had something. Mm-hmm.
Many of you will be making split times for your top tube to tape on your top tube. Make one for your crew, too, with estimated arrival times at each spot, both the lapse time and time of day, and then leave another box, which I love what Fatty did, leave another box for actual time, when it actually went down. And if you've got 2+ racers, crew should write everything down for each rider, all their splits.
Yeah, maybe bring a whiteboard. We've done that before, and it is nice to be able to write down all of those things for each rider. It helps you keep things straight because in the heat of the moment, you forget who came in when and how things needed to change. You can sort of scribble some of that down. I'm going to put that down on my list, Hottie. I've never done it, but I kind of like the idea. Next, remember your crew's comfort. I'm telling racers this. Crew and racer need to think about what the crew needs and how they're going to stay out of direct sunlight. That is, true for Twin Lakes, where you're going to be staying for a while, and Pipeline, where you won't be there as long. But make sure you've got stuff on your list for all kinds of weather. Sunscreen, almost for sure. Bug spray, for sure. Hats, food, sweatshirts, raincoats, gloves, and of course, cowbells above all.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry, folks. If you're on a crew, you won't be bored. This is not boring at all. In fact, it goes pretty fast, especially if you meet your racer at the start line and then jump ahead to Twin Lakes Alternate. The day will move along pretty fast. Before you know it, here they come. You'll see the leaders come through Twin Lakes Alternate and head up Columbine, and your racer won't be far behind. So don't worry about getting bored. It's not going to be bored. You're not going to need a novel to read out there or anything. The day will go by pretty quickly. For racers, my little hot tip for as hitting your crew site, I always liked having a little treat hanging out there, a little motivation. Typical stuff for a Hottie was a cinnamon roll at Twin Lakes Alternate, because it was still breakfast time in my mind there, Fatty, and a cinnamon roll is just what I needed to get to the top of that mine. And, of course, a Coke, and that usually came at Pipeline Inbound, good old Coca-Cola to keep things going.
Oh yeah, cold slug of Coke if it's a hot day. As you pull into Pipeline to right before you're going to be heading up the power line. Oh, that is so nice. In general, I don't really, I don't ever go out and buy a Coke, but right there, right then, oh, it's the best thing in the world. And like Hottie says, I'm going to reemphasize, it's a party atmosphere, and you're going to stay busy the whole day. Crewing I've never done it for the Leadville 100, but I've talked with the crews I've had, and they have a lot of fun. So this is going to be a busy day. It's going to be a fun day. Make sure you have everything planned, and good luck to you.
Yeah.
Well, Fatty, it's been another episode where we have focused on eating, those fast stops where we have to eat really quickly in our crewing segment there. And of course, the feed, our great sponsor, the feed, as its name would indicate, is about food and nutrition, but they do have other stuff to help with performance. And one of those items is a pre-race lotion called AMP HP.
Yeah, I got a tube of AMP HP in my new 2019 Leadville pack from the feed. And, I kind of remember this product from a past iteration of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good, Fatty, because you are right. AMP HP used to be Topical Edge Performance Lotion, but they had to change their name for some reason. Who knows why? It doesn't really matter. When I first came across this stuff, I was skeptical. I mean, the main ingredient is sodium bicarbonate. That's essentially baking soda. Yeah. But after staring it on my dresser for several weeks, I tried it before a big day on the bike and had a terrific day. And I've since used it on days where I knew the stress on the legs would be high, like this past spring at the Chino Grinder in Arizona. It was 115 miles of high desert gravel nastiness. Again, I had a good day, thanks to AMP HP. Now, nice. AMP HP, what it's not an embrocation. It does have a little menthol, but the goal is not warming. The idea is that the ingredients will help an athlete buffer lactic acid, and that means your legs will put up with a little more during a long day. Look, I'm a skeptic about everything, and if someone says, I put on this lotion, I got a gold buckle, I would say, no, you rode well and got a sub 9, and oh, by the way, you were using this lotion. Because, there are no magic potions or lotions, but AMP HP is worth adding to your Leadville arsenal.
Yeah, it's a little marginal gain. It sounds like a familiar topic. And the great thing about AMP HP is it's available from the feed, and it's included as part of your Leadville pack, which means you get it at a discount when you go to thefeed.com/Leadville, check out that pack, and use the code Leadville15 for a 15% discount on it.
All right, now let's talk about food. And this time in our nutrition segment, Goo Energy's Roxanne Vogel has an important tip on timing those last meals before gun time at 6th and Harrison.
Roxy, we are getting super close to race day. Welcome back to the Leadville podcast.
Oh, I am so excited. I just love this event. I'm glad to be here.
I'm just nervous. It's my palms are sweating right this second. I wanted to get your tips for what to do, say, the night before, the morning of, and of course, most importantly, during the race itself. What can we do? What are the smart things? What are the mistakes that we might make that we can avoid so that our stomachs don't get in the way of our race?
That's a fantastic question and something I'm always so happy to share ahead of time. So hopefully your listeners will get a lot out of this. But, let's just start at night before, day before the race. I think one area where people can really improve the outcome the next day is by having their biggest meal maybe at lunch instead of at dinner. So that way you have time to really digest everything, break it down, get rid of it, so to speak, and then just have like a light meal the night before and go to bed early. Get as much rest as you can. Even if you can't sleep, if you're too excited and you're fidgeting, it's okay. Just lay down and rest. So, lunch day before, maybe around normal lunchtime, having a lot of carbs, starchy carbs. So this is the time when you can eat your rice, your quinoa, your pasta, not a ton of protein, not a ton of fat or fiber. I mean, a little bit, but really getting those quality carbs in so you can saturate your muscle glycogen stores and plenty of fluids. So even the 2 or 3 days before the event, I start putting like electrolyte tablets, the little fizzies, in my water bottle. So I'll do about 2 or 3 of those a day in the 2 or 3 days leading up to the event, just so I hold on to my hydration better. So especially at altitude, as we've discussed, it's really important to hydrate, and almost more than you would feel necessary. So I'll try and drink about 4 liters a day once I get to altitude. And again, putting one of those electrolyte fizzy tabs in at least 2 or 3 of those liters. So hydrating, biggest meal should be probably lunch the day before, and then followed by a light enough to fill you up, but sensible dinner. So I think I mentioned last time, eat like a baby. So things that are starchy, things that are very easy to break down and digest. This is not the time to be eating your giant hamburger or like a pasta pre-race with pizza buffet. Stick to things that are easy. So rice is really easy on the system. Things like bananas, dry toast, maybe toast with a little nut butter, stuff like that. So keep it easy and light night before so that you can get to bed and not be digesting so much. And then, the next morning, something like overnight oats is always a great option because it's ready to go when you wake up. You don't have to worry about cooking it when you get up. I like to do we have Stroop waffles, which are like these syrup-filled Belgian waffles that we make at Goo Energy. I'll do a couple of those with some nut butter and a banana. That's always a good pre-race breakfast. I always, always, always do my coffee in the morning just because I'm so used to it. And the caffeine's going to help me perform better.
Oh, yeah. And otherwise, you're going to be grumpy during the race.
Nobody wants to see me on no caffeine. Nobody wants that. And another thing, and this is just kind of my little secret. I mean, it's not my little secret, but it's something I do at altitude or before big events, is actually work on getting my beet intake up. So beet or nitrates actually help you utilize oxygen more efficiently. And when you're in a high altitude environment where there's less oxygen, that can really work in your favor. So I'll do those beet shots. So I'll do those for about 6 days leading up, 1 a day. And then I'll do one about 2 or 3 hours before start time, because that's about the time it takes for it to really kick in and start working in your system. So you can do the beet shots, or you can do spinach. Other leafy greens like arugula are high in nitrates, which is that active component that helps you use oxygen more efficiently. And of course, beets themselves. So if you have some steamed spinach the day before or the few days before, or some well-cooked beets, that will also help. So all of those things would be great in the kind of lead into Leadville.
Yep. Roxanne, this whole idea of the carbo loading, especially the big pasta meal the night before, I mean, have we finally, are we starting to put that idea, that theory to rest? I mean, it sounds like, because we hold on to our glycogen if we're not using it for a fairly long time, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And so for most of the people that I work with, I recommend the carbo load is actually like a 2 or 3 day, just increasing your carb intake versus night before, try and jam it all in, because that's really not going to work out so well for your GI tract if you're just trying to shove extra food in that it doesn't want to process. And it'll still be sitting there the next morning in your gut. It's not going to be in your muscles, right? Like it's not all going to digest and get to where it needs to go in that amount of time. So, I think we've really kind of put aside this notion of night before carbo load, pasta dinner, pizza buffet. So really it's the 2 or 3 days before that's going to matter the most.
Right. Well, I do want to follow up with that, and that's nerve. Now, some people, when they get nervous, have a hard time eating. In fact, I had a fella I was helping out at Leadville, in fact, and I made this big breakfast spread, and he got up and took one look at the food and had like a strip of bacon and then went to the start line. I'm like, man, so what's the balance there? Should we be making ourselves eat something if we get nervous, we get that nervous gut, we don't want to put anything in the stomach, but we know we need it. Where's the balance there?
That's something that happens to so many athletes. And I think as long as you are able to eat sufficiently in, again, that 2 or 3 day period leading into a race, if you are fueling yourself adequately, if you are well fed and getting enough carbohydrate in, it's going to be okay, even if you kind of eat just a little bit or even, nothing at all. It's terrible sounding, but if you can just drink some calories maybe, and you're not able to really want to put any solid food down, you're going to be okay. Just, you don't want to force anything because that's probably going to make the situation worse. So I'd say if you get into that situation, you wake up, you're just like, I'm not hungry, stomach is revolting, I don't want to put anything down there. Just try and get some, electrolytes, sports drink, maybe with some calories, some simple sugars and salt in there. Try and get that down before your race. And if you can, maybe like a little light toast or something very simple, just to kind of get your blood glucose levels stabilized before you start exercising for many, many hours.
And I want to tack on to that, that while I generally don't enjoy eating the morning of the race, what I will do is put some food in my jersey pocket. And at the starting line where I am for, half hour before the race begins, because we have to get there for the corrals and waves and whatnot, during that time, I have really little difficulty, nibbling on a bar or on a stroopwafel or on something or drinking some calories at that time. So at the starting line, you can get some calories, and those are going to be helpful to you during the race.
Yeah, that's a great point, Fatty. And, it brought up another thing to me, which is one of the things I tell athletes I work with is, you want to sip and nibble as opposed to try and, shove things down in large quantities. Yeah. So, it makes everything just so much easier if you take little bits and kind of spread them out. So if you can eat just something or drink something every 20 minutes, it'll go a long way in just keeping your energy level stable versus trying to force things down and going an hour or hour and a half in between putting any calories in. So yeah, sip and nibble.
Yeah, I know that Rebecca Rush is not a morning eater either, Fatty. In fact, she basically gets a smoothie down before her Leadville starts. That's what she's always done. But she's done this. She's always remembered, once the gun goes off, she has to start thinking about eating right away. So with that said, Roxanne, I mean, what's the general rule of thumb here? The gun goes off, we're underway, presumably we have full glycogen storages as we leave the start line. When do we need to start thinking about that first feed?
Honestly, you should be thinking about it from, the time the gun goes off. So, again, I would say if you can try and get something down your gullet, whether it's just fluids, whether it's, a little snack or sports nutrition, be trying to do something at least every 30 minutes. Often for people, I would try and say 20 minutes if it's feasible. Again, it doesn't have to be a ton of calories by any means. It could just be fluids, but something every 20, 30 minutes, something going in the body, and just try and stick with that as best you can. So a little sip, a little gulp, a little nibble of something, just try and be consistent. And that way, you'll at least be getting something in from the get-go should things go south later on in the race.
Yeah, a little bit in the pipeline is better than a lot in the pipeline very infrequently, just a little bit all the time. It's a great mantra to sort of keep in your head.
I just want to be specific then about that point is, so 30 minutes away from gun time, when you roll away from 6th and Harrison, start reaching for a gel or your bottle or something. That would be your advice, right, Roxanne?
Yeah, exactly. If not even sooner, you can take a sip 20 minutes in if you are feeling like your mouth is a little dry or whatever. But yeah, I would say no more than 30 minutes, you should be putting something in.
Once you hit that first left turn on St. Kevin's, that's a good time to get, your first bite of whatever you're going to be eating that day.
All right, some good takeaways here, Fatty, from Roxanne regarding those hours leading into race day and then right after the gun starts. First of all, your biggest meal, that whole carbo loading thing, your biggest meal actually should be lunch the day before the start of the race. So eat a good-sized lunch and then a reasonable dinner. That'll get your glycogen storages topped off. Remember the electrolytes too, not only the day before, but probably the whole week. Or you should just have electrolytes all the time, but really focus in the day before your big race. Nitrates, very important for oxygen use efficiency, and you can get these through beets or spinach. In fact, spinach and beets are good for you at all times, but especially when you get up to Leadville land where we have a bit of an oxygen problem. So beets and spinach for some good nitrates in your system. Remember, you might get nervous. So forcing food down your throat is not a great idea. It's just going to make you uncomfortable. Yeah, you want to be fed as you go to the start line, but doing something that doesn't feel comfortable is not going to make you a happy racer. So if you wake up nervous or you're nervous the day before and you just can't put food down, go with something easy. Maybe drink your calories is a great tip there from Roxanne. And of course, remember that every 30-minute rule, including right after you leave 6th and Harrison. 30 minutes down the road, you want to be grabbing that first gel, that first bottle, what have you, to try to get some food. We've done a lot of great interviews with Roxanne. I think we've got like 10, Fatty. So, folks, if you're thinking about what to do, maybe when things go wrong on race day, we have a whole episode devoted to that with Roxanne. And of course, we have like 9 other things out there too that are worth going back at any point and listening to, whether they apply now or to future races. They're certainly great items, great tips from our nutrition expert, Roxanne Vogel.
We know a lot of our listeners have been going back and listening to The Course segments from season 1. I recommend that they go and do the exact same thing and listen to everything that Roxanne Vogel has said in every episode of season 2. She is just a star. Knows her material so cold. Hottie, I recently saw a photo of your gravel bike, and I was pretty surprised that your Banjo Brothers frame bag was not in the shot.
Yeah, that's my favorite bag. You noticed well. I had actually washed that bike, and when I do, I take off the bag. Now, this last time I hosed things down, I noticed that my frame bag interior had become a bit of a cycling sewer with all kinds of debris, like crumbs from bars, and sandwiches, energy gel spillage from empty packs that had leaked all over the place, and good old-fashioned dirt from mud. It all kind of collected in my favorite Banjo Brothers frame bag. So I hosed that thing down and hung it up. In the meantime, I've put on another Banjo Brothers product, one of their top 2 bags. It doesn't hold as much, but I can still get in my phone, a couple bars, a multi-tool, money, credit card, just enough that if I wanted to, I could go on a ride without a cycling jersey, but still carry the stuff I would put in the jersey pockets. The top 2 bag I have is the large. Banjo Brothers also has one slightly smaller with a clear top. Banjo Brothers says my large bag can also be attached to a seat post for extra trunk space. And if you go to the Banjo Brothers site and check the customer reviews, you will find one that says it was purchased for and performed well in the Leadville Trail 100.
I wonder if it was my wife who said that. She actually uses that bag and has had good luck with it at the Leadville 100. She's not much of a reviewer type, so I bet it was someone else. Anyway, you can get 15% off your order by going to banjobrothers.com/fatty-favorites. Banjo Brothers, as you know, we can say it all together at this point, is tough, practical, and affordable. It's based out of Minneapolis, been in business since 2003, and they are good guys. Get 15% off your Banjo Brothers orders by going to banjobrothers.com/fatty-favorites.
Our maintenance segment is up next, and this time our chief mechanic, Ryan Morse, is going to tell us about brake bleed. But before that, a quick story on leaving well enough alone. I don't remember what year it was, but it was the night before the LT100, and I was turning in for a long summer's nap. It was about 9 at night, normal bedtime for a Leadville racer. My housemate was restless and nervous. This was his second LT, and the night before the race, he was going over his bike for a second time, a bike that had been working perfectly fine all week. I woke up a few hours later at night and could hear him downstairs still tinkering.
Oh, no.
The next morning...
I know where the story goes.
It happens the next morning. It's race day. He took off for the start line while I stayed back at home stretching on the floor, getting ready in my own way. While I was doing my stretches, I heard him coming up the driveway yelling, "Hottie! Hottie! Problem with my bike!"
Oh, no.
The problem was no front brake. No good. Turns out that tinkering I heard was my teammate messing with his brakes and evidently messing up the front one. Luckily, he had a second bike on hand. He jumped on that, finished the LT100, but missed his goal. Was it the backup bike? Probably not, but the stress certainly did him no good. The lesson here is, if it's working, don't fix it. Trust it. Go with it.
Yeah, I've swapped new tires onto a bike the night before a race, only to find the next morning that the seal didn't hold. It's just a terrible way to give yourself a self-inflicted bad day on a bike.
Yeah, again, it may not break the bike or cause you to pull over, but it's just unneeded stress. So, with that sound advice, let's turn to our maintenance segment and tackle an important topic, no matter where you are racing, and that is brake bleed. We're back with Ryan Morse of Diablo Wheelworks, and folks, as you know, we've talked about brake pads with Ryan. Now we want to move into the next bigger topic here, and that's brake bleeds. Yeah, the good almighty brake bleed. First, as a matter of routine, how often do you like to see a mountain biker bleed their brakes?
Again, everything's dependent upon a few factors, but in a general sense, 2 to 4 times a year, believe it or not. Some brakes, I would say, need it for sure a bit more than others. No names need to be named, but in that sense, 2 to 4 times a year is a good rule of thumb. And there's a bit more that goes on with a brake bleed. I think a lot of people don't always realize. Really important to clean your calipers and especially clean your pistons. So, few things.
So is the frequency dependent on the type of oil your system has? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. How you ride, where you ride, oil used, which particular, whether it's DOT or mineral oil. Yes, absolutely. It can make a difference.
So which one requires more frequency in your opinion?
I would say DOT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you got DOT 5.1 or any of the dots, maybe lean towards doing it more often than less than a mineral oil system. How do we know when we need a brake bleed?
Sure. The easiest tell is how your lever feels. If your lever feels nice and firm, it has enough lever pull, and then at the end of that pull, it firms up, and you have a bit of space between the lever and your grip, tends to be a good indication that your brake is doing pretty good. If you have a mushy lever, if you have a lever that pulls all the way back to your grip, those tend to be very good indications that at the least you need a brake bleed.
How about a tight lever, one that packs up?
Sure. A tight lever is usually more than a brake bleed at that point. It can mean a few things. There's either something going on at the caliper or at the master cylinder on the brake lever, and sometimes both.
Okay. Now, we're heading into our big event, and it's weeks away or whatever.
Right.
Leadville or whatever.
Creeping on us.
Is a brake bleed a good thing to do as just a matter of preparation?
Yes. I mean, if you're going to be doing a race, a ride, anything where it is long and sort of slightly unsupported in a sense of not having a bike shop you can easily go to, be as prepared as you can. If you are worried about things and you fix your bike, get on them and make sure they are in as good a shape as you can. And if you don't fix your bike, then go to a shop that you trust to make sure you're in good shape before your big ride or race.
So a brake bleed before you head to Leadville, not a bad idea. Now, of course, Leadville throws in that all-important variable, elevation.
Yes.
So talk to us about elevation by 10,000 feet.
Sure.
And air bubbles and brake bleed.
Sure.
What should we be mindful when we get to Leadville and our brakes?
Sure. You know, in an honest sense, elevation, I don't have any definitive information on whether it has a huge direct effect on how a brake works. So if a brake is properly bled at sea level, does it get affected by going 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 plus feet? I would assume it has some effect on it. Will it detract from its performance? You may find that out after a few days of hard riding to where your pads have worn a little bit, which will magnify any sort of negative feeling of your brake. So in a sense, I think it can. Will it make it so you have to deal with it at your destination? Possibly. I don't have any definitive answer that way.
I guess we circle back to question number 3 or whatever it was, is feel your lever.
Yeah.
If your lever starts feeling wonky,
Right.
you know something's up.
General rule of thumb, if things are feeling good, you're good. If things are not feeling good, they're not. And as lame as that sounds as an answer, that's how most of us deal with things. And just be wary and pay attention. You know, this stuff doesn't usually creep up overnight. So, you know, things aren't working as well as they should. Try to deal with them as best you can and as quick as you can.
Well, again, folks, if you have time to get your bike by your mechanic or here Diablo Wheelworks in the LA area, Ryan will help you out. Make
Yes,
sure your
sir.
brakes are properly bled and working as you head to Leadville. Ryan,
Yes,
thanks
absolutely.
again.
Thank you.
And we want to thank Ryan Morris for taking the time to participate in this show and help us get our bikes ready for what is a true test of equipment in the Leadville Trail 100. And since we're on the subject of brakes, Fatty, I can tell you that without question, every mechanic I have ever asked about brakes will always have 2 favorite brands, and one of them is always Shimano. Mechanics love Shimano brakes because they are easy to bleed, and they love that Shimano uses mineral oil. Mineral oil is easier on seals and repels water better. And oh yeah, Shimano brakes stop great.
Yeah, stopping great. That's a good feature for brakes to have. And it's actually what I love about Shimano brakes. They scrub speed easily and quickly and reliably. I'm just amazed at how much power Shimano's cross-country brakes have. In fact, it's amazing the number of heavy, more trail-oriented bikes are spec'd with Shimano cross-country level brakes. They stop that well. For me, I love how late I can brake as I'm coming into a corner. That late braking means more speed, both coming into and out of the corner. Once again, little differences, little things making a big difference in this long day on the bike.
Mm-hmm. Check out all of Shimano's brakes by going to bike.shimano.com. We will also have a link in the show notes for this episode at leadville100podcast.com.
Hottie, I want to tell you about a guy I met at the expo a few weeks ago when I was in Leadville for the Silver Rush 50. Sterling Mudge was there with a group called the Cloud City Wheelers. He's not a native of Leadville, but he has made the place his home. And I have to say, Hottie, this foundation is doing some stuff that any mountain biker who visits Leadville has got to know about. So I talked with Sterling on mic for a few minutes when I was in Leadville for the Silver Rush about what the Cloud City Wheelers are doing. Sterling, welcome to the show. How are you doing, man?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about you, first of all, before we get into what Cloud City Wheelers is.
My name is Sterling Mudge. I've been in Leadville for 19 years. I came here originally for Colorado Mountain College. And after coming here, I realized I wanted to stay here for life, and this is the place I've lived the longest.
This is a place that does tend to make you think about sticking around. And
it sure does.
You did. You're living the dream. That's awesome. And now you are executive director for Cloud City Wheelers, right?
Yes.
So tell us what Cloud City Wheelers is and what it does for Leadville.
So the Cloud City Wheelers have been around since 2007. We host the Leadville Winter Mountain Bike Series, which is the premier fat biking event in Colorado, or events in Colorado.
It seems like it would be.
We have created a system of trails called the Timberline Trails, and it is located in the Colorado Mountain College and the Lake County owned land area, just to the south of Leadville. And we also maintain trails around the county on Forest Service property. Yep. We are spearheading sustainable trail building in Lake County.
That's awesome. Now, for racers as they come into town and have a few days before riding the Leadville 100, the way they can find some of the trails that you built are there are trailheads kind of interspersed along the Mineral Belt Loop Trail, right? Yes. And I've stumbled on some of those and have just tooled around. You guys build some great trail. I mean, it is a lot of fun, and it is flowy. It has that amazing pine tree smell. It is, there's stuff that is challenging, but also stuff that is just really relaxing. I mean, you've got it all, and I'm sure you've got a lot more than I've seen. Estimate how much trail just in that area have you built? Do you know in miles?
We've built 15 miles of trail in that Timberline trail area,
and more on the way.
More on the way. We're actually in the NEPA scoping process out at Turquoise Lake area, with 11.5 miles slated for construction beginning this fall or next summer season.
Now, I bought my first fat bike last winter, and it sounds like I might need to come back to Leadville for the first time during winter for your fat biking series. Tell me, what kind of help could you guys stand to have from Leadville racers who love this town, who love what you're doing with mountain bikes, and would like to see more?
If you'd like to see more, you can. We always. Obviously, we're a nonprofit. We're the local IMBA chapter in the higher Arkansas Valley. We appreciate any donation in regards to helping us keep the good things going in Leadville. We also have a big push for a new bike park here in Leadville.
The Huck Finn
Bike Park.
I saw plans for that. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be a park that'll create lifelong cyclists and lifelong athletes.
Now, is that right that's right by the Dutch Henry Hill? Or is it?
It's right near the skate park.
It's right near the skate park, which is also worth seeing for any racers who are bringing their kids who love skating. Have them bring their boards. But tell us a little bit about this Huck Finn bike park.
So the Huck Finn Bike Park is a revamp of the bike park that we built in 2007. It joins forces with the asphalt paving project up at the airport, and we want to create a Velo Solutions paved pump track with it'll also have some progressive skills features and dirt jumps on the outside of it.
I wish there would have been stuff like that where I grew up. Maybe instead of just being a climber, I could be someone who actually has biking skills.
It's not just an excuse for me to get a new bike either.
Although it doesn't hurt, right? So what's the site that people can go to, and how can people contribute to this really great work that you're doing?
So we have our website is cloudcitywheelers.com. And if you'd like to look at our donation area is /donate after cloudcitywheelers.com.
Okay. Awesome.
We also have a Facebook page, which is very active, and there's a fundraiser button on that as well.
Fantastic. Two good places to go. And will you have a booth or anything set up at the expo for the Leadville 100?
We will have the most exciting expo spot at the Trail 100. We will have a modular pump track.
Oh, wow.
So it's called the Speed Ring, and it's 25 feet wide by 50 feet long. So it'll activate the expo area. So bring your kids, bring your striders, bring your bikes. We might have, or we will have bikes and skateboards, and potentially my son's scooter available for people willing to pump around the park.
All right. Have fun. Try something new. Don't hurt yourselves before the race, though. For people like myself who do not have that kind of skill, might be fun to try out, but don't go nuts. Sterling, what you guys are doing is awesome. Thanks so much. And
Thank you.
I didn't know about this thing at the expo. I am stoked to see it and to, who knows, maybe try it out.
Yes, we encourage everybody to try it out.
Awesome. See you at the Leadville 100, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good note there, Fatty, is that there are more places to ride in Leadville than just the Leadville course. I know the race is all about, Keevens and Powerline and the Pipeline area and getting up and down Columbine. But if you're looking for a little break from the stress of the race or what have you, there's some super nice single track also in the Leadville area. One more time, that's cloudcitywheelers.com. Fatty, are you going to get on that track at the expo?
No chance. I am not going to try anything new during the week. I don't want to discourage folks from doing it, and I'm sure that you will do it, Hottie, and I'll crew for you.
If you've been watching the Tour de France and you are a gear geek like Fatty and me, then you've probably, your head's spinning from trying to keep up with all the logos flashing by on your screen.
Yeah, the tour is really a rolling collage of sponsors, and at least one of the supporters of this show is underneath a team in the Tour de France, and that is Envy, and they are with Team Dimension Data. And it looks like the team has done something that I've done with my Envy wheels, and that is put on some really nice stickers that really complement the bike. Every time Team Dimension Data is on your camera, you can see that Envy logo spinning on the team's wheels. Looks so good.
Mm-hmm. But here's the great thing about Envy's sponsorship that should give us all peace of mind about buying a premium product with a price tag to match. I was reading an article about Envy's relationship with its pro team, and the director of sports marketing, Neil Shirley, said that the rims you see on their World Tour team in the Tour de France, the rims going up the Tourmalet, screaming into a Finnish town, or flying down the Galibier, are the same rims they sell to you and me. The pros, in this case, get no top secret rim, nothing different than what anyone else would get from Envy. They are the same rims. And that's why what we love about Envy, that they want everyone to be on the best composite components, not just the pros.
Yep, and you can learn more about all of Envy's wheels and components, many of which seem like they are good enough for the Leadville 100 or the Tour de France, and they can handle pretty much anything you throw at them on any terrain. At Envy, that is ENVE.com.
Let's wrap up Season 2, Episode 21 of the Leadville Podcast, presented by Floyd's of Leadville. If you like the show, give us a 5-star rating and review over at Apple Podcasts. Also, share it with your other cycling friends and support our sponsors. Let them know you appreciate them making this show possible.
Good luck in your training. I should say you're tapering at this point, huh? Thanks for listening, and we will see you very soon at the start and the finish line.